Hi everyone, it's Joshy here. In today's video I'm going to be talking about the balancing update on the 10th of January 2025 for AIMBLOX. I was recently appointed as a moderator and I figured there wasn't a lot of videos or information going around on the specifics of guns after they get nerfed or buffed or even added to the game. So I figured I'd make videos like this every time there is a big update to let you guys know all the things that I think is necessary for you to know about the gun. So things like damage, if it's been nerfed, if it's been buffed, the new damage, the old damage, yada yada yada. To start off today, we've got a pretty big update. We've got a lot of balancing and a brand new gun, which, excuse my pronunciation Germans, it's called the Prule SMG. Now in my opinion this SMG is very solid at close range and it can be viable at long range. It does have a bit of recoil. But I'm showing it on screen now. This is what it looks like with the luxury skin that comes in a bundle that you can currently get in the item shop. Its max damage is 20 and it will deal a headshot of 26. And this is only at very close range as quite the damage drop off. But it doesn't go down too far. It only caps at a minimum damage of 18 with a 23 headshot. So at all ranges it does decent damage. However, to account for recoil and spread when you're hip firing, it's best to keep this at closer ranges. This gun has an RPM of 900, and if you're hitting all body shots at close range, that's 20 damage per bullet, and that means 18,000 damage per minute, which is exactly the same as the Desert Eagle and the PP Bison in terms of DPM. And there's 40 bullets in a mag. I hope you guys enjoy this gun because testing it, I thought it was very fun. I absolutely love the way it feels. I love the way it sounds too. It's got a really unique sound in my opinion. But I do really like the skin as well. I'd say overall this is a very strong gun. I don't think it's overpowered, but obviously there's the feedback tab if you guys want to tell me otherwise or yell at me for calling this thing fair. Okay, so next up we're going to be going over the balancing part of the updates. These are guns that have already been added and we're changing some things about them. Maybe for what they were too strong, maybe for what they just needed a little bit more attention. We've got 3 nerfs and 3 buffs. The nerfs being for the Berserker, the Chris Vector and the BFG-50A. And the buffs being for the Bloxy Cola gun, the Ion Pistol and the SRS. So starting off we have the Berserker. Now, this gun beforehand was ridiculous. It was one of the most used guns in the game, had one of the highest average KDs, and worst of all, it was behind a paywall for a lot of people who weren't high level. So let's get right into the nerfs here. So to begin, the damage has not been changed whatsoever. I'm showing the damage values on the screen now. These damage values may not look too familiar, especially the minimum ones there. Essentially, the Berserker had ridiculous range, and we've toned that down a lot. It was to the point where range was pretty much negligible. You would always hit the same damage, no matter what distance you were going. We made it like a lot of the ARs, where the further away, the less damage. Makes sense. The other things that have been nerfed are the recoil. It has been increased considerably, both in the ADS, but more in the hipfire. And the spread when hip firing is also quite noticeable, especially when you get further into the magazine. So I'll put up some clips here showing off both the damages and the recoil patterns. So if you look at the recoil patterns here, you could see it's quite shaky for the hip fire, but the ADS is quite smooth. It just goes left and right after a small blip up at the beginning. In my opinion, this gun is still very viable, however it's just not the broken OP mess that it was before. Moving on to our next nerf, we have the Chris Vector, which is a very strong SMG, but it's only got a small nerf. We have toned down the hip fire by 1 damage. I'm showing the old and new damages now. There's been no change in anything else as far as I'm aware. It's only been hip fire damage and it's very small. It's 1 damage for the max and minimum. But this should hopefully be enough to stop it from being an absolute laser at close range, as it currently is. Next up on the nerf list, we have a very long-awaited BFG nerf. We've had complaints of this gun for quite a while now, and we finally caved in and decided to nerf it. So the max hip fire damage has gone from 110 to 100 damage, so the very second you get damage drop off, you're hitting for 99, and I have a clip here showing roughly the distance that it starts to hit for 99 rather than 100, just as a frame of reference. The minimum hit damage has gone from 90 all the way down to 65, and the minimum ADS is now 85 as opposed to 90. We've also turned the RPM down a little bit from 45 to 40. It's not that noticeable, but it makes a small difference. And then the draw time, aka the time it takes to get the gun out when you select it, has been doubled, going from half a second to 1 full second. This was because there was a whole thing with the BFG being doubled, so people would run 2 BFGs and they could spam them pretty easily, and we wanted to get rid of that. Next up, we're going to our buffs. So these are guns that we feel like just needed a little bit more improvement to be viable guns, or maybe they weren't being used as much as we think they should be used. So we've only made some small buffs, and only for a few guns. Our first one being the Bloxy Cola gun. So this gun was added relatively recently. It was one of the most recent additions to the game, and it used to be a burst fire with 10 shot burst and 100 ammo. And then we changed it to a full auto gun that had 50 bullets. And this didn't receive the greatest feedback since it was quite like the Frostbite and all of its variants. So it's been switched back to its original stats with the 10 shot burst, and I'll be showing those stats on screen now. Overall, it's still a very viable gun, and it's one of the very few burst weapons in the game, so it gets credit for that in my book. Moving on to our next gun, we have the Ion Pistol. So it has a new movement tech, this being the exact same kickback effect you get with the Boomer shotgun, where the first gun can launch you in the air. The Ion Pistol now has this exact same thing on its first bullet. Along with an RPM increase, it goes from 400 to 450. The minimum damage has been nerfed. We've brought it from 20 to 19, and the max damage has been buffed, going from 20 to 22. So originally this gun did 20 at all ranges, but now it does slightly more up close than it does far away. And the final gun we have buffed is the SRS. It's only been a small buff. We've brought up its hip damage. Its maximum is 85 as opposed to the original 75, and the minimum damage when ADSing has gone from a tiny 60 to an 82. So this gun should be a bit more viable for more ranges because it has some decent damage. It doesn't go all the way down to 60, and it's quite versatile. You move quite quickly with it, and it's got a pretty good fire rate, so I would say this is a lot more of a viable sniper now compared to what it used to be. And on a final note, autofire has also been nerfed, so that is a term for the autofires on mobile. It's not a cheat, don't worry PC players if you've never heard of that term before. So autofire originally would fire at 70% of the RPM of whatever weapon you're using, whereas now it's going to fire at 50% of the RPM. So firing will be a little slower. It still will have the same first shot, so snipers are still very viable. There's not really a huge delay. Okay, so that just about wraps us up. So that's about all you need to know for the update. There isn't really any other huge changes. I've pretty much covered all of them in this video. As I said before, the Discord link to the official AIMBLOX server will be in the description below. If you would like to join, there's a hangout area, there's VCs, we've got cheater reports. If you ever find a cheater in game, you can report it to us and we'll get to that. It does help us a lot with managing the game, because we do know a lot of people cheat on Roblox FPSs in general, because Roblox doesn't have the greatest anti-cheat, so we have to do quite a lot of it on our own. In the AIMBLOX server, you'll also be able to find a feedback tab in which I will more than likely make a post with this video, in which you can give us your opinions on these nerfs and buffs, whether you think some of them are unfair, whether you think it just hits the nail on the head and you think it's a perfect update. Go ahead and tell us. Any feedback is greatly appreciated. And I'll see you guys in the next update, or whenever I decide to play the game again and maybe record. See you guys later, and have a good day.